Okay, this is the third of multiple tutorials on designing layouts in Squarespace. And these are professional structures that I've used over many years of using the platform. Fluid Engine is really taking everything up a notch. We can create more intricate, more professional and polished design layouts every single year when there's new tweaks and additions added to the layouts. And here are just a few hero sections, sometimes called headers or banners, billboards for our website. The main aim of the hero is to get our message across really quickly. We're trying to answer the question that someone may ask, am I in the right place? And secondly, do I trust this organization to do what I need? And so the first need, terrible. Okay, the first thing that's really important and the priority for the hero section is answering, am I in the right place? With this title combined with this image, freshly baked bread with a little bit of information showing their location, ticks most of these boxes. And this is content that goes usually above the fold line, although we can choose to have one hero section saying one thing at the top, and we can go with a secondary hero further down the page, just to break up the content so it doesn't look too much like a document. What we're trying to do is go for magazine flow and style with our websites, using images to break up text content, chunking it down into easily consumable amounts. So that's the theory side of it. Let's jump in and create some more of these structures. I'm using SquareForge as our example, and here we've got a page with different card layouts. We will be coming on to this in future tutorials. I'll be showing you how to build the more intricate fiddly layout in Squarespace. You can, of course, just buy SquareForge for a one-off fee or by joining our community, information at squareforge.net. But if you're looking to save the pennies in the short term, the whole point of these tutorials is I show you how these work and how we can click everything together using Squarespace. Over the course of the next few months, I'm going to give you tutorials on every single one of these structures in Squarespace and showing how you can create them. And we're going to start today with this one here. I'm going to use content. So what I'm actually going to do is just duplicate this tab, because I've already got a page with these designs in place that we've already created. And I'm going to go to a new page that I've called Hero 2, which is a blank Squarespace layout. This tutorial is not a beginner's guide. I won't be going through and explaining every single click. The idea is this is much of an inspirational session. We can add these blocks as and when we need them. I want something that's similar to this with two different button styles. So I'm going to copy the heading text first, then jump across to our page. If I want to just reference what we're going to be copying, we can see heading 1 here, paragraph 2, I think, a line, and then 2 buttons, and then a background image. I put color swatches as our background photos in SquareForge, simply because you can imagine your own content in there and it doesn't skew your decision making depending on whether you like the photo or not, or whether it's relative to your industry. So before we add any blocks, I'm just going to go to edit section here in the right hand corner. Then we're going to go to background image, and we can upload an image that will pan right the way to the edge of the container. Instead of uploading a new image, I'm going to go to the library because we've already got these photos in place. And we're going to go with this one. Okay. You see it's a little bit fuzzy, a little bit grayed out. That will be the overlay opacity. We can just get rid of that and see how our design looks first before putting any overlay in place. Now we're going to look at our title. So that's over 2 lines, but we could go for the 3-line option as well and just adjust the structure a little bit. And also we want to go back into edit section, and I'm going to get rid of the full screen option. That means this grid goes to the edges. And this will just save us a bit of hassle and a bit of time because we can adjust the height exactly to what we want. Now I can put our line in. And we can see it's coming out with a really dark gray, and we can't see that very well. So even though we can't change the line directly, what we can do is go to the edit section and choose the color pack that we want to apply to this. So if I go for darkest 1, put it white, darkest 2, gold. So I'm going to go with the white option. And let's see if the text was above or below. It's above the line. So we can bring this up to give ourselves a bit more space. Add another text block. Bring this across a little bit. Head back over. Copy this. Wrong way. Copy this text. And now I can paste that in. I could decide to change that to paragraph 1 and see how that fits. So a little bit easier to read, although we're losing it here a little bit, which is a bit of a concern. We want to make sure we can make this as accessible as possible. And also the spacing here is probably a little bit too much. So a quick fix for this is just to align the text at the center of the frame And we've got good uniform here. Line height, for example, we tend to have more spacing between paragraphs or titles over multiple lines with larger fonts, although the way that this has quite a compact line height, so we can see the D tucking in underneath the Y, I think that works really well with this particular font type, but sometimes you have to do a little bit of tweaking to get it to work. And I think over 3 lines for that, meaning that on most screens it's not going to come into this part of the photo, meaning that we're not going to lose important text. I can always just make that a little bit deeper if I want a bit more space for my buttons. Next up, we're going to add our first button block. I'm not going to worry about changing the title or the link, although you can go to the link option here and add a page from your site or search for an external page, email address, etc. And if I double click on it, we can change the text. But I'm going to leave that for the default because this is about styling over getting the content 100% to what we want. And we can see that there's a bit more spacing here, so I'll show you how to do that in a bit as well. You don't have to. You can make it as spacious or compact as you want, and it usually is led by how the rest of the website looks. So now I'm going to double click on this button here, and this is a simple case of changing the button style to match what we want. Now your button styles will be different depending on how they're set up on your site. But you can see here that the primary is solid, the secondary is just an underline, and the tertiary button is an outline. You can, of course, change that for each different button style, meaning that you've got ready to go button styles in place. Right, this final one, we can see it's got like a HTML icon. So I'm just going to do a quick search. I forgot about this, so I should have had it ready. So this website, TopTel, has a load of icons that in most cases we can just copy and paste into our buttons, and it just gives them a little bit more unique look and feel. So if I search for arrow, you can see this one here. That one looks like it'll do the job. And let's double click on this button again. Maybe add 2 or 3 spaces in and then put our arrow in. Really simple little hack there that makes our buttons stand out. You may decide that you don't want the arrow on both, but I think we'll go for that. And we've got something now that's very similar to this wireframe. So we use SquareForge for wireframing because it's easier actually to go through with the client to show the different structures available. And that's where we can start shaping the site to our client's content. And if you're worrying about running out of ideas or your designs becoming stale, there's billions of combinations that you can make up using SquareForge. I kid you not. Okay, so now we've got that hero section here. That's looking quite nice. Let's look at the next one. So this one uses 2 image frames. They're not shapes, they're both photos. Again, 2 buttons here with no subheading. So what we're going to do is take this first heading, duplicate it. And before we do anything else, I'm just going to add a blank section. I've already got one saved here. So just a blank section to divide them, just so we can tell them apart and separate them easily. And this time we're going to get rid of that text block. We don't need a line. And we can bring these buttons up. And in fact, we can probably just make them a little bit more compact. So by selecting both, we can make the width of them shorter. And I think for the secondary button, we're going to go for 2 the same, as shown here. So not exactly the same structure, but the whole point of SquareForge layouts is you can play around with them, use them as a starting point, and then start to really adjust and design the layouts that suits your design style, or of course your brand as well. So that's a simple hero section here. What we're going to do now is actually we're going to remove the background image, and then it'll go back to whatever color layout we've got. Alternatively, I could choose a texture. Yeah, I think we're going to do that, but we'll put the shapes in first. So let's go and add images, same way as we'd add images in normally. Adjust the height to match the height of the container. And I'm going to duplicate that frame, get them so that they're same width and roughly alongside each other. Now I can upload the photos. So once again, I'm going to choose photos that are already in here just to save us a bit of time. If it fits to the frame and doesn't fill it, like this, you can double click on it, go to design and choose fill. Or in this case, we want to change it to shape. So circle is the default when we select shape. And we're looking at 2-3. And it's this shape here. So we can see now that the height isn't quite matching it for it to keep its shape. So what I'm doing now is just getting rid of or reducing the height to get it to fit. And I can move this text up a little bit as well. So when we're using shapes, we have to adapt to them a little bit. If I double click in this, I can change the focal point just so we can choose a better starting focal point for the image or center point. And now I can duplicate that. Save them to go through the settings again. Move it across. And this time, let's double click on the photo again, and we're going to replace that photo for something else. We'll go with this one. So this is something a bit different. Just realized I didn't do the mobile view for this one, so we'll do them both together at the same time. Okay, so now we've got that, which is quite a nice effect. Let's see if there's anything we can do in terms of the spacing. So I've clicked on the settings and we've got the gap option. Ooh, what's happened here? That shouldn't have happened. Okay, I think I found a bug. So what I'm going to do, actually, is just duplicate this image again. And we can see now that the margins are slightly different. In fact, it's going on a different angle to the bottom to the top. So that's interesting. Looks like that angle is slightly different to that one now. So that could be that it just needs to be readjusted to extra height. So we've got wider gaps there, or we could have them overlapping. It's really up to you in terms of how you want to proceed with it, but have a play around with the spacing settings. I think I'm going to go with that. It's just that with no spacing, I've just got to make sure I'm happy with the button spacing. So I actually use the grid blocks to get that right. Yeah, I think I preferred it as it was. Yeah, I'm being picky. Okay, so let's edit this section. So we can adjust the width between them ever so slightly. And then with just a case of playing around until we get a solution that works. There's a slight line there now. To increase it a little bit more. But we can't seem to get the gap, the top and the bottom, to work together. That could just be the settings on the image itself. Yeah, there's a wider gap at the top there still. I think that's more the setup of the photo. So you can play around with it as you want. We'll go with that and we'll move on to the next one then. I'm just going to swap this photo out. It's really bugging me that that gap's wider at the top than the bottom. You'd think they'd make it perfectly parallel for each face. But we'll settle for that. I'm going to show you one more thing before we go into mobile view. And I'm going to go back into the settings. And instead of choosing a full photo for the backdrop, which will be just too busy, too much going on, we could either go down the art route and have different colors. Now, obviously, we can change those colors because that's just not looking very nice. Or alternatively, we can upload a video, or what I'm going to do here is add a stock image. But this time, I'm going to look for a texture. Something like this slate texture here. Something that's not so obvious in the backdrop, although that's quite detailed there, and we're losing a lot of the impact because it's really standing out from the rest. So you could always jump into Photoshop and create your background. And I was looking for slate, not this granite type effect. Let's replace it and just have a look. You'd think maybe texture. One thing I found Unsplash, the free stock library within Squarespace, is that if you use this site and you search, I think this is the same photo, isn't it? And if you search for multiple keyword searches, it's not always amazing. It'll put a lot of weighting on the first search. We'll go for this one, and then what we can do is in the image editor, make it a lot darker, just so it provides the contrast that we want, because it's going to look a little bit, it was a nice texture, but it's fighting too much with the photos in terms of the lightness of it. So if I go to edit here, and let's bring that brightness right down, highlights right down, and same with shadows. Now that's more of a texture in terms of what I want. Also, I'm going to change it, crop it to 16 by 9. This means that it's just going to be slightly less photo to load, meaning it's going to be quicker loading on the page. That texture works quite nicely. I like that. Bring those two buttons closer together. And now we have a design that I think really stands out. And two very different styles. And even if we compare, if you just move these along to the end, this one really doesn't want to behave, does it? Let's see if we can fix that by just going into the design settings. Go to fit, and then shape again. Yeah. So we just have to reset that one for some reason. I'm just checking that there's no extra gaps top and bottom, and it's going flush. I believe it is. Okay, now let's fix these on mobile. So we'll do two together. Let's make this a little bit deeper so we've got more to work with. We can choose to bring these buttons down. Seems to want to keep going back up. Let's have a look here. I think you're going to move that button alongside each other. I can select both of those buttons and then bring them down to the bottom. Obviously, they would say something quite different on each. Two learn more buttons really doesn't help. There we go. So I'm going to get them on the negative space at the bottom. Now that's going to be too deep now, that banner. Tell you what I can have a look at. What we can do instead is edit the section. So that's fine on desktop view because it will crop it top and bottom, but on mobile, we're getting too much of the detail of the photo in. So if I move that to the left, it won't affect desktop because of the orientation, but it will make a big difference to mobile and how much we can get to skip on the mobile view. So we just got it coming in from the right. That means I can bring my title to the left. I can narrow this block here and then bring it all down. So these buttons can go alongside each other at the bottom. Bring that one grid shorter there. So even though it's deeper, that's fine. That works. There we go. How about that? Maybe not perfect. It still do a little bit of tweaking, but it's a mobile view and that gets the balance right in terms of we can see the information. We can know there's more scrolling and people are quite happy to scroll vertically or scroll through on mobile. Okay, so now we've got a choice to make. We can either have them overlapping or further apart. I think I'm going to go for further apart. Make this narrower. Yeah, I think that's the effect I'll go for. It's a deliberate offset style. Help if I wasn't so fussy with this thing, wouldn't it? There we go. So we can play around with that until we get to an effect that we're quite happy with. And I think I'll go with that. So quite a unique look and feel to it. Okay, so we've only done two here so far. So this has been slower going. These are more intricate layouts than some of the others that we've been doing in the past in previous tutorials. They're all available if you go to our Website Builder's YouTube channel, and you should see a playlist for these hero sections and content sections in Squarespace. Okay, much easier one this time. Just one heading to the left and three buttons. So let's just do this one and show how we can do it really, really quickly. So we're going to go with this one, duplicate it, bring it down, add our saved section, which is just a blank space in the middle. And let's get rid of everything bar the title and the two buttons, which will duplicate it to create a third. In fact, what I'm going to do is just get rid of that second button style. I'm going to be really lazy and just duplicate the first button style. And we can see that there are three really wide buttons that go across the full content width. So if I select them all, I can drag them all across. Now I can bring them flush to the bottom of that hero section. What I can then decide to do is maybe make that a bit narrower, because there's not as much information to display in here. So it's not taking up so much of the height of the page. What I could also look at is potentially put the text expansion option. And that will expand the text to fill the frame. And that could work quite nicely as just a heading style. Squarespace always does this. It thinks that you want to create more space, and it's a little bit fiddly and annoying, but you get used to it, and it's a small trade-off you get for the flexibility. Okay, that one's done. Let's have a look on mobile. You probably won't be right. Do you know what? I think that's largely in terms of what I want. Remember, these buttons will say 3 different things. So what we could do is decide to switch it around and have the title below, riskier now, the buttons. So it better fits the image. And what I could do now is make the container taller and then align the text to the middle so it just fits into that space there. When we go back to desktop, it should still be fitting as it was. Okay. We're going to do one more to wrap up. Split header. Let's bring our title, summary, and line content. There's no call to action on this one. And in fact, that was the original design that I chose for this particular template that I'm building. So we're going to pick that first design, duplicate it, bring it down. Just helps for me to know where I start in the next tutorials. Okay, let's have a look. So a short line underneath the title. See that for heading 1, which is what we want. And let's get that text to go underneath it. And we get rid of these 2. Difference is we've got no background image on this one. We're going to put an image block. So first of all, I'm going to get rid of the background. Just check it's the darkest color. Let's move this down to centrally aligned. So 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom to get that nice and centered. And now we're going to go to our image block, move it across to the right-hand side. And sometimes you might want it perfectly central. If that's the route you're going. Yeah, you see that one's centrally aligned there. And it's actually a deeper photo, so we can make it taller if we want to as well, by just dragging that photo block down and then moving this down to fill the gap so we've got even either side. So at the moment we've got the 5 at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the bottom. So we just need to bring this down one more to even it up. And now we have a layout that we're happy with. We can decide then to adjust the line top, middle, and bottom just to get it to look as close to balanced as we want, as we can get it. And now we can go and add our photo. Maybe again, fed up with this photo by now. Tough. It's about layout, so we'll just put up with that. Okay, let's go to the design section. And here we can choose to fill the frame. And what we should have is it flush to the top and the bottom. And if it isn't, it's probably because you've got the fill screen option enabled. And also, if we want it to fit flush to the middle of the content block, we've got to get rid of these horizontal gaps. So you can do it independently so it won't mess up the layout of the rest of the page, the spacing. Alternatively, you can just choose this button here and it will make it compact, left and right, top and bottom. There we go. That image is perfectly centered. So what you could decide to do, and I did say that was the last one, but considering this one is just it flipped around, we're going to do this one as well. So before doing the mobile view, I'm just going to duplicate it. Should really do the mobile view first. Let's move this over to the right, and let's move this photo over to the left. Sometimes we just got to be a bit patient with it to snap it to the left. And it's up to us now where we decide to start it from. So about there, it's probably good for me. And now we've got an option. So let's change this to a different photo. Go for that one. That one's been edited for the image to be darker. There we go. Just took a minute just to update that. But now we've got this alternating structure, so we could put signposting, different subheadings in each of them, and we've got a lot to work with. Now, normally I would fix the one on mobile before going on to the next one, because there'll be less to update, but I'll just show you what it means now. So we've got the section here with a section divider in the middle there. And what we're trying to do is mimic the styling as close as sensibly possible, but also making sure it works on mobile view. Snap that out to the left and the right, and bring it up to the top. So even though they're aligned left and right, on mobile, we'll probably have them looking pretty much identical. If we don't really want that line in, we could just hide it behind the photo and bring the photo layer to the top. Or we can add a bit of spacing in, play around with it until we get to a point where we're happy. Because the alignment is independent to mobile, we can align it to the bottom, bring this line in to match the desktop style, and there we go. And then this one, it's pretty much the same process, really. So rinse and repeat. Leave a space for the line. But now we've already plotted out what we want to do. This should be quicker. Snap it out to the edges. I could count the number of rows, but I can't be bothered. So we'll go for something that looks close by eye. I think that's right anyway. There we go. So those two sections now are working on desktop and mobile. But if you want more inspiration about how to create layouts like this, quickly and easily, by someone who's been through this process thousands, if not tens of thousands of times, head over to SquareForge.net, have a look at the styles. You can just go on and steal them and copy what I've been doing in these tutorials. Perfectly happy with that. But if you want this entire toolkit of 300 odd layouts, and I'm constantly adding new ones as we're creating them in our professional designs for client projects, go over and grab them. So these, for example, are images where we can either choose to put a background image like the slate effect we did in this tutorial, or just background colors, textures, videos, etc. There's so much flexibility that we can do with these different design layouts. So we've got things like slideshow galleries with different effects. So much to work with, all in one neat little website that gets copied and pasted into your Squarespace account. Go on there and steal them if you can't justify paying for them right now. Have fun, and I'll be back soon with another tutorial. Cheers.